Welcome to Chords Chaos. This is a podcast where we talk about balancing music, family, and mental health, staying grounded while staying creative. I'm Zach.
I'm Bryan.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Chris.
And we're here to help give busy musicians important life balancing tips.
In America, there's a projected 103,000 people who are working musicians, and there's not really any resource for them out there. And that's where us four guys come in together, and we decided to make a resource for them.
All right, so today we're going to start off with some popular questions we've received from surveying y'all musicians out there. So I'm going to go kick it on over to Bryan.
What we noticed in our surveys from most of the questions is that a lot of people had trouble with time management. So we sat around for a little bit, kind of figured out what would be like some good tools, tips, scheduling systems, or daily routines that work for most people.
I think planners work the best, like having a daily planner with every hour on it and saying what you're going to do and sticking to it. That is the best way for me to stay organized. And without that, I think your head would explode.
Yeah, and even like setting reminders, you know. I mean, now we got our phones, which is, I mean, that's a tool nobody had like even 20 years ago.
No.
So you can set constant reminders. You can tell, you know, like, hey, Siri, remind me at 5 p.m. I've got, you know, this and that, things to help you stay on track, because most people always have their phones on them anyways.
Me and Chris were talking about it earlier, like the big shot musicians. That's like, you know, you got your probably Sabrina Carpenter. I don't really like her, but then you got probably like Kiss back in the day. They had very detailed plans of what they were doing, when the sound check was, when
Production
they were going
notes.
to, you know, it's production notes, when they're going to rehearse.
And everybody's
kind of
on the
thing.
same page because the same page got put out to everybody. And then somebody's got to hold everyone accountable, but that's okay because everybody signed up to make this thing work.
Yeah.
Right? That's the dream. But you got to coordinate the efforts if we're all on the same page.
Yeah. And I feel like it's tough because for musicians, because we're all so creative people, you know,
And
a lot of us got more ADHD than others, so we can get easily like, you know, we got to get out the door, but then we can just be lost in something else, and it's like, oh, we got to, you know, I got to go, you know, so yeah, using tools like that, reminders, or just scheduling, like, yeah, a lot of things, there'll be like a planner we'll send out, like you said, a schedule to everybody and follow along that. Yeah, having respect for others.
Also, I think having a partner or having a band that respects your time is very important as well, because you don't want someone that is dictating your own time to be spent. Especially if you have kids.
Started.
Yeah, especially if you have kids.
Get started.
Don't get me started.
Ramp up.
If I showed up to work and ain't nobody else here, I'm going to start getting irritated, you know.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
That's just the basics of it. And if everybody thinks we're playing, I'm not playing, I'm working, and you got that twisted somehow.
Yeah.
And that leads into also another thing is who you work with, you know, the importance of finding your crew that you all are on chemistry and get along with well, because there's a lot of times is not that way in the industry.
This bleeds off into one of our other questions in the survey was what makes people step away from music? What, you know, have you ever stepped away from music? And I have before. I mean, it's just, you know, you have something happen or somebody says something, somebody does something to you in the band, and you're just like, I'm done with this, or you don't have the time for it. Like most of the time, it's the time for it and having kids and that kind of thing. And also, Chris was talking about it earlier. The big thing that people step away from.
There's a list.
Yeah, there's a long list.
And towards the top of that list, I'd put women, money, children, and, you know, all the things attached to all those things.
Even like other life hobbies. Like when I first got into DJing, I was at a nightclub. I DJ'd from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. 4 days a week.
It burns you out.
I did that for about 6 months, and then I was like, I'll quit. I'm done, because I lost like 15 pounds because I would try to stay active in the gym and like on a diet, but you can't do that when you're DJing for 6 hours. You're in a nightclub. Right. And I was 18 at the time, you know. I mean, people thought I was 21, but anyways, you probably
thought you were the shit.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, like I had a great time, and then it started like it started dragging. I was literally waking up at 5 p.m. Somewhat often. I would wake up, sun was going down, and I had another gig beginning in 4 hours. It happened multiple times, so I was like, I'm done. I stepped away. Now I'm in the wedding industry, and my gigs are over at 11 p.m. I do a lot of private events, and you find out what works for you.
Yeah.
And I'm able to live my life daily how I like to, and I can
doing
do
that
other
kind
hobbies.
of thing like that, it probably really affected your mental health.
For sure.
I could never like I've played a show before that went because they just kept putting tips in the tip jar, and it was just like we were there at 2:00 in the morning still playing. It's
your passion at the end of the day.
Yeah, you had a good time, but at the end of the day, you still have got to go in. You got to go off the stage and then take all your stuff off the stage. And when you play drums, you have the most gear out of anybody probably. And also you're setting up your own sound. You got to get all that off of the stage as well. I didn't leave, and I was an hour and a half away from home. I didn't leave until like 4 a.m. I mean, I got like it wasn't as I didn't sleep as long as you because I can't sleep like that. But I remember waking up the next day, and it was just like, was that really worth it? And it's just like when it comes down to that, I think that is one reason that people step away is just because it affects your mental health, it affects your sleep schedule, and some people just can't. Yeah. Some people cannot.
Yeah.
Especially your average musician is not getting paid much. I was getting paid $80 for those 6 hours I did.
Yeah,
for 6 months, like every night, or just
I got $80 from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. I just didn't know. I was just like, I'm getting paid to make music. Like, this is awesome. And then I had to get someone to cover me, and I couldn't find anyone to cover me. They were like, that is shit pay. I'm not, no, what are you doing? And I didn't know. And then, so I started looking into it. I was like, oh, I'm getting robbed out here. They had a cover fee.
See, I think from both perspectives, yours and Joe's, it was like a one-off, like, till 4 a.m. type shit. So I think it's like more of just like a in moderation kind of thing. Because one like every now and then, sure, go ahead and knock yourself
it's fun
out.
For sure.
But like doing
you're doing it every
in
day.
succession,
because like on the other end, like the wedding stuff. If I only did that, then I'd probably get bored out. So having that balance where it's like occasionally do a little like club kind of like whatever frat party, something fun that maybe doesn't pay as much, but it's fun. The balance, like you're saying.
Yeah,
just like with a regular job, don't let your music career become monotonous. You know, don't keep doing the same thing. Go out and do something.
That's like a life.
Else.
That's something you can apply to everywhere.
Have fun with it.
Yeah,
you can apply that.
This is before we get into the vices and the substances that are always around on the weekend. If you work on the weekend or at night when everybody else is off work, they're indulging in all their worst behaviors. And you're on the job, they're exposed to it all the time. And I like to have fun too. And after a while, it becomes not fun.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
100%.
I just quit drinking last year, and I don't miss it at all. And there's so many people that are not even want to be around me because I quit. And it's like, oh,
I did the same thing. I used to smoke weed, and marijuana I guess is a better word for it. But I quit doing that about 6 months ago, I'd say, and I lost a good number of friends and musicians I used to hang out with all the time. It's just it's just I think it's those vices that keep somebody there when it's not there anymore, and you see what's happening. That's one reason to quit a band.
It's like that Chance the Rapper song, we don't do the same drugs no more. That's how it goes.
Hopefully we don't get copyrighted.
It is kind of like a bummer though, because like
it
you
is
think
a bummer,
like you
big time. I thought we was friends.
Yeah,
but it was really
like a personality thing, but now you're only here for like the thing.
And a lot of times, with friends, you'll think somebody's a friend that's in a band with you, but y'all are not friends. Y'all are coworkers.
Could be frenemies. Like it happens.
Yeah.
So it's like a coworker type of deal. You're in there making. You go to high school with people. Did you ever make money with those people? And it was your one business together, unless you were in a band with them. No. It's very different. You start to think to yourself, and I think this is one reason people struggle with mental health in a band and that kind of thing, because you're around these people all the time, and you probably think, I've thought about it before, you probably think to yourself, if I wasn't making money with these guys, would they see me the same way as I see them?
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal.
Yeah,
so.
it is. And I mean, I guess kind of similar subject, but I guess to pivot a little bit for like listeners wise, just going over like there's certain things that, balancing the chaos of the music life with your actual life, and family and such. I just want to ask y'all, like, what are y'all's non-negotiables, such as like family dinners, rehearsals, etc., just to help listeners kind of identify things that must stay in their daily routine. And if there are certain things that's like, certain things you have to put before music, I guess, so to say.
100% family.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, your time with your family, regardless of what it is, it's always limited. So, like, put that on a pedestal above everything else, and then let everything sort itself out from there. Kind of like a little tier list. I guess, like, work, maybe, because, like, you got to pay bills. Depending on how that bank account's looking, you might have to put work up after family. So
I'd say my girlfriend.
Yeah.
More than likely, yeah.
So that brings me to a great point, though, and how women tie into this as a negative as opposed to a positive sometimes.
Men at times when women are in a...
Yeah, but it goes both ways. Don't get me
like
backwards here.
Yeah.
Because there's a conflict of interest almost between the significant other and the music career, because one gets attention and the other doesn't get attention, right? And the job is to get attention, right? So having a spouse that can understand that your job is to get attention from other people is rare, and that's why the divorce rate in this industry is just like over 100%. Yeah. And my backup career as a military officer, it's also at like over 100%. So I'm really selective about who I get in bed with these days, because I'm trying to play this guitar for a living and song and do the thing. Yeah. So I'm real picky and
I was with a girl one time before I got with my girlfriend now that she didn't respect the music at all. Just like, she's like, why are you going and doing that? Why don't you just stay home with me? This is what I want to do. Like,
That's
and
great,
I'm not trying to be here with you right now. I'm trying to go and be on my own for a few.
Yeah.
And you've got to find one that
someone that'll support what you're doing and understand, like, hey, maybe right now, I'm not bringing the big bucks home and such, but you got to be able to look at the future like I do with my career. Like, I really feel like I do have a talent and a way to get my message out there to where, like, music is it's one of those jobs like an entrepreneur. I mean, where you're not starting out. Not everybody's getting in the field like a doctor making 100K plus. You got to build. You're starting making, not like dirt. Maybe 15K, maybe, and then you're just. But it's it's an exponential growth. There's not a ceiling, really. There isn't really a ceiling. You can be making well over a doctor and stuff, but it's those early stages where you want someone that's going to be able to support you and see the same vision. You got to see eye to eye, or at least as close as possible.
Communicate.
100%.
Communicate.
So what is your non-negotiable?
My non-negotiable, I would definitely go with time with family, but also time for other like hobbies, but relationships in general, friends and family. I believe that relationships are the number one source of happiness. Like, when you're on your deathbed, you're not looking at all the money you have and things like that. You're on your deathbed, you're like, I have
who's here?
So many valuable relationships. And I feel like in this day and age, it is much less common that people nurture their relationships. Like, I have a lot of friends now that are in colleges. I have a friend that like down in Florida, Tennessee and such, and we were really close in high school, but it's so like uncommon that we like really nurture a lot of those relationships. I feel like my only source of communication with them now is in like a group chat where we send memes and stuff.
Right. Same.
That's what holds us together is like that and like fantasy football kind of things. But I really take note of the friends that will like randomly reach out to me, and like, so I have a buddy who's all the way down in Florida, like I was saying, and he'll just randomly FaceTime me out of the blue, and I'm like, what? And he's a really fun.
And he probably FaceTimes you at the time that you really need it.
Yeah, like when he does, I least expect it, and then we just have like a classic goofy conversation. It kind of takes me back to when like we all lived in the same neighborhood, and it takes me back to that. So, and I just realized like, man, like even with family relationships, like all my grandparents live in Oregon, so I see them maybe twice a year, but I always try to remember to reach out to them, because at the end of the day, I feel like that's gonna be way more happiness than money or status. So I would say my non-negotiable is just relationships in general, taking care of the ones I currently have and growing them further too.
What about you, Chris?
I'm with that. Well, taking care of those relationships as much as you can. Sometimes other people's problems will bleed over into your life, and sometimes you got to let them go. But non-negotiables as far as music, you're not going to stop me from doing it. That's my non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be making some original music of my own regardless. And if somebody's willing to help me do it or help me, to do it better, that's cool. But I'm just like,
and that's where, like you said, communication is.
Correct.
Like, if everyone,
I think communication.
yeah, if your people know, like, hey, today I'm going to be working on music from 10 a.m. till maybe all the way up till 10 p.m.
Right.
But I'll be keeping you in the loop. I'll let you know, communication for
It's
sure.
like that nurturing
Also, I was
thing.
going to throw this in there for, we've talked about mental health a little bit, but I'd say mental health is like the biggest thing in our world today with the amount of suicides that happen and the amount
so the social media angle on all of this is it really important to touch on? I don't know if we should right now, or maybe that's a whole episode in itself.
might be.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of trickery going on.
Oh yeah,
For sure.
But like I for one did not know this was a thing until I researched it. But if you are dealing with mental health, even physical health problems, there's a resource called Sweet Relief, and you fill out a application for it and everything, and they financially fund and they'll help musicians. So they'll fund
awesome.
to go get doctor's appointments, because if you're like me and you don't really have a regular 9-to-5 job, I don't think my band is going to make enough for me to have health insurance. So
Or your 9-to-5. Your 9-to-5 won't either. They'll give you like
Yeah.
39 and a half hours, and then the band can't pay for your medical insurance.
yeah,
either,
it's just so with that, I think that's a very good resource. And if you do find yourself needing that, check out Sweet Relief.
Cool, man.
But yeah, I think for wrap up, time management, which is a big thing. We talked about mental health. We talked about our non-negotiables with music, and I think we touched on a few great topics that could really help out musicians that need it. It's a tough life as a working musician. And, it's
If that's
it's
just
tough.
one of your jobs, it's even tougher.
yeah, you got 2 or 3 more, and you
a
go to
lot of-
school.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
A
rough.
whole lot to balance. You got to juggle. There's so much on your plate,
Best bet is just nurture those relationships, so like you don't feel alone. You just can lean on those supports.
Yeah.
And if you got too much on your plate, just kind of like scoop me off. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I definitely feel like we covered a lot of these topics pretty well in depth, and looking forward to, our next conversation. We'll be diving in more into feeling pressure between choosing income versus passion.
Yeah.
That's a really tough thing. So
That's
we've got a whole lot more topics to cover in the future.
Yep.
But really just wanted to give the listeners a taste of how deep we can get, and then just introducing.
And none of us are parents, but if we're gonna research some stuff on if you have kids,
Yeah.
and you're a parent,
And even
it's
my own father's in the music
Yeah.
industry heavy. So, there's a
we're
lot
going to get his take on it, right?
we got to get his take on it. Yeah. He dabbles in his own podcast himself.
Yeah.
So
So this is Chords Chaos, and I'm Joe.
I'm Bryan.
I'm Zach,
And I'm Chris. Thanks for
And
tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah.
signing off.
See you around.